It's Halloween in Shibuya and everywhere you see there are pumpkins and bunny girls and pumpkins. So what's the best way to celebrate this day for us than see if Jack-o'-lantern could beat a palace all alone. But not any Jack-o'-lantern, a level 2 Jack-o'-lantern for the whole challenge. To start, we needed the right costume, not just for me, but for the gang. And with the match outfits, we infiltrated the palace. Our first enemies were simple unicorns, but the damage Jack was doing was still low and there was too high. So I died right at the start and I didn't save. After repeating everything, we were ready to fight again the first enemies. I couldn't defeat both the unicorn with Aji, so I needed to use an accessory that could help me. The first one I try is the Ring of Pride that gives defense up at the start of the fight, but the only thing it did was to slow my death. The second one was perfect for the Halloween spirit, and it was the Richest Man Mask that inflicts fear on all enemies. But the status change didn't make any difference. So I died again. I wanted to give Aji another chance, so I equipped an accessory with Fire Ramp, but I didn't know that the chance I gave was to disappoint me another time. We needed help, and help came from Hell. The Spiral Hell Ring gives you a skill that can insta-kill all the enemies, and finally we could proceed. Maybe you want to know how I use only a level 2 Jack-o'-lantern when every person level up after a fight. Well, it's simple and I'll tell you by talking about the rules of this challenge. First one, we can use only a level 2 Jack, so after every fight we need to delete it and buy another. Second one, in a fight we can use all the skills with Jack, so no normal attacks, guard, items and guns, but we count accessory skills as Jack skills. Right now I can skip most of the fights except the important ones, so the third rule is we need to kill all the shadows in a room at least one time each and then we can proceed. The last one is that we can use items as skill that heal and restore SP outside battles because even the omnipotent Jack can do everything. It didn't require long before I could saw another death and I forgot to save, so we needed to restart again and fight again against the first enemies, buy another Jack and die again in the same fight without saving another time. After one last retry and with a clever trick to ambush a shadow near another shadow, I was able to complete the first room without using more than 2 Jacks. In the next room I found out a weakness of Jack. Some enemies have a turn right after the first one and they can kill you almost in one shot. After I killed an enemy, I wanted to explore to know how many shadows remain before I could proceed, and while destroying a vase, I met a treasure demon. Joker knew what he had to do, out-attack him to start the fight. I didn't bought a new Jack, so I needed to load a save file. At the end it didn't took long before reaching a new safe room. Near us there was our first mini-bosses of the palace, and I tried to beat them, but they were immune to fire attacks and the accessory I was using gives you a fire skill. So I wanted to die, but of course it took 20 minutes because every time I was at low health, everything was ready to heal Joker, even the enemies. I retried the fight with a win skill, but dying when I don't wanna die is much easier. In fact, I died another time. When I restarted the battle I was able to beat them and booked another Jack, but this wasn't the last time I tried the fight, because I was killed right away and saving wasn't something in my mind, as you probably noticed. From this point, I chose that if I kill a shadow and then I die, I don't need to repeat the fight. But the enemies I killed were mini-bosses, and they give you a keycard to proceed in the palace, so you know the drill. But to be honest, they weren't a problem anymore. You think that I would have learned that you can find treasure demon in a vase? No, I didn't. In fact, it happened the same thing as before. After a fight, I met a treasure demon without buying a new Jack. Don't worry, I load the save. We used the keycard to reach the surveillance room and an enemy that died. In the room we found a map and some members' cards. The Futaba wasn't able to hack because that would have made the gameplay much easier, but the cards were usable to reach the member floor and leave the standard floor. So like this the standard floor ended, with a lot of deaths and a lot of Jacks. But it was just the start and it was the easiest part. In the member floor we met Sae congratulating to us for disappointing her. We reflected about her actions for a second, then me and Lil Rapper talked with a shadow to find out that we needed 50,000 chips to unlock the unique skin for the membership card and have access to the pay to win floor. To reach our target we went to the dice room, but everyone was sure that the only way to gain chips was to use Jack, then playing a rigged game. So we crawled into a vent and started our usual drill. Here we met our first disaster shadow, immune to our strongest skill, without weakness, and with a buff skill. I left her aside for the moment. But the disaster shadow wasn't the only problem, because I died so many times in the same spot. I have a 20-minute clip of me dying here, and when I beat one of the two shadows in the room, the other one started to be the problem. At least there was a safe room nearby. I took a break before dying another time, and I fought against another shadow that had the same enemies and the same death screen. At least it took only 2 tries this time. Back to the other shadow, well, after more deaths, at the end victory was mine. I met another disaster shadow and I wanted to kill her. I tried different strategy, but the result was the same. For revenge, I killed another shadow. And only the mini-boss remained for completing the dice room. Before going to beat the mini-boss, I went in the wrong room and I met another mini-boss. I wasn't ready for this, especially to the death before even starting my turn. And to the restart the battle button, that should be translated to re-die again. Back to the dice room, it happened at the same thing. Died the first try and pressed the restart the battle button, but this time Jack killed me with my insta-kill skill. In the meantime I found out that he was weak to blast damage, so the third try was the right one for us. After the fight we used the terminal to rig the rigged game and win some chips. The little rapper used his charm to gain even more chips for us. Booked another Jack, we were ready for the next room, the slot room and the other mini-boss. I died one more time, but because I wanted to learn his weakness and kill him in the next battle. One more Jack to buy and we were ready to explore the new room. After only one shadow I met another fight where death was the easiest option. I tried different times to win, and in one of them the enemy wanted to speak. His purpose tempted me, but for you Penguin I wanted to use only Jack and I regretted this decision. 1 second later. I needed only one more death before I could met one of the best RNG as possible. Flow at the start and after the first hit, concentrate from Futaba. Needless to say, but I died anyway. I chose to skip this fight for the moment, but the next one contained the same enemies. At least this time the RNG worked. Do you know the meaning of medium chance to insta-kill? Well, it means 12 miss and 1 death. During the exploration we found a big slot machine where we could win 50,000 chips, but the slot was rigged. We searched for a way to resolve the problem and near us there was a terminal where we found out that we need to search for other terminals to rig the rigged game in our favor. It didn't require long to find them. In the meantime we were able to kill all the enemies and only our chips remained. We went to the slot machine and won them, so that we could buy the high limit card and use the elevator to reach another floor. But a mini-boss was ready to block us from taking the elevator, and she was able to do it, not once but twice, thanks to the restart the battle button. Again, Jack couldn't do anything else, so I just used my last resort card, or cards I could say, because I could give Jack any skills I wanted, thanks to the skill cards. I made Jack immune to the mini-boss and slowly made a medium well clock. Serious talk here, I knew that the cards could make this challenge far easier, but I just used them only in situations like this where I couldn't proceed with Jack, and don't worry, I'll tell you every time I use them. Back to the video. Beat the mini-boss, we took the elevator and found a surprise for us. To proceed in the palace, we needed the real side to recognize our costume if they were spooky enough. Before leaving, we booked one last Jack in his primal form. A new day started and it was Halloween, so we met Sae with her costume and spooked her. The same day we went back to the palace and we found out that the door for the pay-to-win floor was open. To reach the treasure, we needed 100,000 chips, and to gain them, there were the House of Darkness and the Battle Arena. But before going in one of them, near us there was the Sea's Guardian and I wanted to kill it. From this point I knew that this type of fight were more trial and error than anything else, so the fight went like this. I learned that he was weak to nuke damage and then I died, so I equipped an accessory with nuke skills. Learned that he could kill me in one shot with wind attacks before I could kill him. And then I died, so I used a skill card that knew wind attacks. Learned that he could kill me one shot with physical attacks, and then I died. So I used a skill card that repel fist, and then he died. After a new Jack, we were ready for the floor. We started from the House of Darkness. And for this challenge, this was the hardest part of the palace. It took me half hour to complete it. because I needed to remember which shadows I killed, which I didn't, how to go back and change Jack, and if the next enemy would have been a Rangda or a Norn, but it was just random, and to beat them both required different accessory and the later even some skill cards. The fights with Norn were even slowly because she was able to cure herself, so the only two ways to kill her was to wait for the moment she consumed SP and run away. I tried to kill her but nobody came, or with a good RNG. But the best part overall was when I thought I finally reached the exit and I found myself at the entrance. To complete this part I used a lot of jacks and died sometimes, but at the end I reached the last room and only the mini-boss remained. Even this fight was a trial and error. I died sometimes, but with the skill cards I was able to beat him. I bought another jack and only one room remained to beat before the boss. The battle arena, or as I like to call it, the only place where I failed the challenge. Because the arena is based on 3 battles and after each one you gain some XP, but you can't buy another jack before the next fight starts. But it isn't something on my control, so it's a fail. Here I died only 2 times and learned that I needed to use a skill card to beat the first and the second round. While for the last fight I finished all the SP and I was ready to die for the 3rd time. But Best Girl Maruki saved me, and I was able to win on the first try of the 3rd try of the second run. Poor Jackie went from level 24 to level 2. I had enough chips to reach the treasure, but my shopping disorder activated, and I didn't have enough chips anymore. We went to pay our chips to a machine, but it tried to trick us, and the pay went out to 1 million chips. At least Lil Rapper was famous and had them. Finally only the boss remained, but before leaving the palace I left aside one thing or two, the disaster shadows. I needed the skill cards to kill them, but before using them I wanted to find out their weakness in exchange of one more death. After killing both disaster shadows and bought 2 more jacks, I found the 3rd enemy that was so well hidden, so even that one needed to die. Only one thing remained to do, buy the last jack of the challenge because the next enemy was the last one. So the people disguised as Phantom Thieves completed a palace for Halloween. I wanted to fight the boss on this spooky day, but Lil Rapper was so full of himself that he chose the last day before the investigation for the battle. Finally the calling card day arrived, and in the next one we invaded the palace. We went in the treasure room, but the treasure was nowhere to see. While trying to figure out where it could be, a door opened and we found an elevator which we took. It was the right choice because we found Sae in 4K Ultra HD. The battle started, but it was a little unusual because it was a roulette game. I restarted Persona to be sure I was playing the right game, but nothing changed. So we played the roulette, but it was rigged thanks to a glass lid on the number I chose. The only way to win was to catch her in the cheating act by having someone sniping the glass. It took me a turn to understand that nobody could snipe for me, so I waited to see if something happens in case you don't have a companion, but the roulette went on, and on, and on, and on. I wanted to die, and Sae talked about a penalty in case I would have attacked her, so I summoned my jack and used Agi. But the penalty is just a move that can kill you. Another option was to kill Sae, but the damage didn't even scratch her. There were no ways to kill her and no ways to kill myself. So I restarted the game. I had the most reliable companion and I restarted the battle. This time we were able to catch her while she was cheating, and then she had the realization that maybe she was a boomer. I was scared when the game started a fake all-out attack that didn't happen, because the boss had the second form, the one-shot penguin form. I restarted the battle to give Jack another chance to die, and it didn't disappoint me. I needed to use the skill cards and I used them. While fighting I found a really good strategy that was working. Use Agi when Sae can't damage Jack, and use Guard when Sae can damage Jack. But after 15 minutes of fight, the total damage I did was really low. I knew that I could reach the second phase of the fight just by using this strategy, but it would require a lot of time, so I chose to use other personas and damage Sae till 4000 HP and then re-equip Jack to see if at least he would survive the second pattern, then using only Agi for a lot of time and then die in one shot. Well, I died in one shot. It seemed impossible to use only Jack without going against the rule to don't use guard, so I let the boss kill herself because she sinned against our poor Jack. After the boss we found ourselves trapped, and we needed to escape. I chose to distract the enemies for Makoto and the others. While escaping, the guards were able to surround me and started a fight. I wanted revenge for Jack, so I used it and slowly burned the enemy to death. Do you know the best part? You don't gain the experience after the fight. So our Jack didn't level up. I continued my escape, but I was trapped again. This time there were too many enemies for Jack, until Best Boy came to my rescue, and after a show-off, she showed off again and killed the last enemies of the palace. So penguins, that means that you can beat a palace with Kazumi only. Wait, oh, I was doing another challenge. Even after this fight, Jack didn't gain experience, so it seems that the boss did us a favor. Well, Penguin, you can beat a palace with Jack only. I know I didn't beat the boss with Jack, but it went far better than I thought. And today is Halloween. I need to give credit to him. Penguin, happy Halloween. Hope you enjoyed the video, and if you're watching outside Halloween, bye bye.